Hi everyone, Oli here, and welcome to my abbreviated video, especially for the AGS, about my recent trip to the Maritime Alps, where I went to look for, among many other wonderful things, Primula allionii in flower. I went pretty early, mid-May, and I was centered in Tond. So yeah, come with me and I'll show you what I saw. Let's go. I'll say a bit about Tond before we start. It's florally very, very rich because it's in the Alps. You've got the altitude, you've got alpine flora. It's also not far from Nice, so you get the Mediterranean stuff as well. So there's this fantastic diversity of flowers here. I had my two reference books with me, the Chris Gray Wilson books, beautifully illustrated by Marjorie Blamey, and I set off on my path. First thing I came across was this lovely big fat orchid, but I don't know what it is. So we'll get the book out and I'll show you what we do, how we identify a flower if you've not done this before. So we know it's an orchid, we go to the orchid pages. By the way, I know it's an orchid just because you get used to it. So you look at all the photos, no, it's none of those. You flick the page over, yeah, that looks like it there. Then you go and read the description. As long as that all keys out okay, that's your plant. So this one's Orchis purpurea, the lady orchid. And one thing to look out for, if two species are very similar, is their distribution. For instance, if one grows in the Pyrenees and the other one grows in the Alps, you know it's not the Pyrenean one. Next up, another orchid, this lovely white orchid, Cephalanthera longifolia, look at those lovely long leaves. And more orchids, Ophrys, bee orchids. Now, I'm not an orchid expert, and there's lots of very, very similar species here, so I didn't actually specifically identify these. If anyone can give me names, please leave them in the comments box below. More orchids, this lovely little bird's nest orchid, and I thought this one was particularly nice because the flowers aren't fully open, and it really shows off those lovely buds. It looks like it's been spray painted with gold leaf paint. Dactylorhiza sambucina, both colour forms, yellow and the purple. So rich in orchids. Orchis pallens, some more orchids I didn't identify. Answers on the postcard, please. There's beautiful gentian up here, and they just never look real, do they? What a fantastic plant. Again, I didn't identify it. Acordus group I always call it, because a lot of the species are so similar. But a lovely bank of Gentiana, Acordus group. Now we've got a bit of snow here, and when I see snow I get very excited when I'm walking, because a lot of these plants, like crocus here, and hepatica, they flower as soon as the snow goes. It's really, really early. And let's get over the snow. And look at all these crocus coming up. Yeah, masses of crocus here. I think it's Crocus albiflorus. The descriptions are all quite similar, but sometimes the defining thing is digging up the culm and checking the fibres, which I didn't want to do. But I'm sure some of you can just say, yes, it's this crocus, so please do let me know. It's always a job, isn't it, to know which angle to go for when you're photographing flowers. I mean, this lovely little bunch of crocus is a perfect example. Do you try and capture the feathering on the outside and that lovely sort of goblet chalice shape, or do you try and go a bit higher and get the anthers in as well, which is a really nice contrast between the purple and the white? I guess you just take loads of photos. Here you can see there's a pure white, there's the feathering at the base, there's ones that have feathering further up the petals, or whichever part of the flower it is. I thought this one was particularly good because it's just such a lovely, rich, indigo-y, mauvey sort of colour. Yeah, really, really quite something, these crocus. As I say, I was early, so I was seeing lots of other bulbous stuff. These Muscari here, Muscari comosum, Muscari, I believe, neglectum, Ornithologulum, umbulatum, Star of Bethlehem. Last time I was here, in 2016, I saw these fritillary and tulips. Now, there'd been late snow here this year, so sadly I didn't get to see them. There were leaves, but no flowers. All the stuff in the rocks was fine because it wasn't affected, but the stuff in the turf was a little bit later. Another Corydale species here, again unidentified, and I'm going to come clean here. Often when I go away, I'm looking for something quite specific, and there's all these other lovely flowers around, so I photograph them and think I'll come back to them later and ID them, but often you need to be with the plant, you know, looking at its leaves and its leaf axils, that sort of thing. So sadly they don't get identified. I remember on my first trip with the AGS and the evening plant ID sessions, there'd be lots of discussion about which specific plant we'd seen, and these discussions, debates, often got quite heated. But that's another story. Anyway, day 2, let's get back to the Alps. Good morning, plant lovers. Okay, so today one a bit higher. Going to go at the Mini Air Valley to start with, and then up the Castorino Valley afterwards. Good news is I've seen some Primula in flower, Primula later, the little ox slip. So hopefully you can see quite a few things in flower today. Here's the sort of terrain we're walking through to see these flowers. Here's the lake, and you can see the little paths going up through light larch woodland, and there's glades. So all these flowers are right next to the path, just growing in the turf. Things like the Primula, which we will see, and the Saxifraga, this little Saxifraga paniculata, the very green form that grows in the Mini Air Valley. It's just growing in like some rocky outcrops and boulders. Always worth exploring next to the stream, because you can see things like this you might recognise from home, marsh marigold, Caltha palustris. Look at those beautiful golden salvas. And as you can see here, the larch, we're really early, they're only just starting to get their needles, and here's me in my nice new boots. Now, here we go. One of my favourites. I know I say that about every plant, but this one is one of my favourites. You only kind of get to see it early on in the season. Hepatica nobilis. It's a member of the Ranunculaceae family. And it's lovely. Look how dainty that is. Also comes in white, comes in pink as well. This lovely inky purple with the really bright white anthers. It stands out as a very, very striking plant. And the one on the right here I thought was interesting, because normally the flowers come up first and then the leaves, but here you can see the lovely kidney-shaped, bright green, hairy leaves. Delightful. So here we go, one of my favourites, Primula marginata. Grows all over the Maritime Alps. Now's the perfect time to see it. I'm just going to move it up a bit there so you can have a look at it. What a beauty. Let's have a bit of a closer look. Okay, here we go. Beautiful, beautiful flowers. Look at the farina. Farina inside the flowers there. The leaves, lobed, covered in farina, and the best part about it is, well, not the best part, obviously it's stunning. Also, it smells good. Now my words are clumsy and uneloquent, so I'll let Farah describe Primula marginata as only Farah can. Here we go. If, out of all the race, I had to choose one species alone to cultivate, I'm not sure that my choice would not fall on Primula marginata. And by the way, the leaves are toothed, not lobed, toothed. That toothed edge is outlined by a narrow clear line of golden white powder, whose effect, as of a silver hem, is quite startlingly beautiful against the grey tone of the foliage. Of the flowers, he says, of the most exquisite silvery lavender, which sometimes deepens towards purple or lightens towards lilac, but always keeps blue as the dominant tone of the composition. In the centre of each blossom, too, the crystalline texture of its fabric is powdered with minutest pearl-like flecks of the powder. And somehow, this gives the last touch of daintiness to the flowers. The white dust stands out on the lavender ground like globules of rain on the surface of a pool. Isn't that poetry? So yeah, the Maritime Alps, a great area for Primula. Marginata, as we've just seen, of course the king, very special, Primula allianii. There's also this little chap, Primula viscosa or latifolia, whichever it's ended up as. Cowslips, oxlips, Primula hirsuta. Look at this little beauty in this damp rock. Really is sweet. Pulsatilla alpina, and also a subspecies Apifolia. I think this Pulsatilla alpina was perhaps the best specimen I've ever seen. It's just absolutely perfect. A Daz white, and one of the flowers is turned away so you get to see the reverse. And this other angle you get to see the reverse and the flower, so capturing all the lovely features. A really, really lovely plant. And the Apifolias were great as well. Sometimes the sun was shining through the petals or sepals, whatever they are. An absolute beauty. So this area is so interesting and unique because, as we've seen, we have some lovely Primula, and the rarest is of course Primula allianii. And it's interesting because it's really, really early flowering, earlier than any of the sort of standard alpine stuff. Now, it's not just the Primula that are at it. We've got some fascinating, very rare Saxifraga here, including one very special plant, which is of course Saxifraga florulenta. And would you believe it? It's really late flowering. Way later than any of the standard alpine stuff. But I think that needs to be the subject of another video. But it's a quirky region, and there's 3 wonderful silver Saxifraga that grow here that are flowering now. So let's take a look at those. Now, Farah, when he visits this area among the hills, talks extensively about these plants and the differences between them. He believes that Saxifraga colosa balladii, which he says is more towards the tond end, is distinctive from Saxifraga colosa langtoscana, which is over in Vesuvius, just over the pass. He also talks about Saxifraga cochlearis, which again is quite a similar plant. More about this in another video I'm going to do. But he talks a little bit about the flowers being different, but mainly he talks about the rosettes and the leaves. And one of the things he says about balladii, he describes the foliage as being like a hedgehog that's had an electric current pass through it. And you know, I think I kind of agree with him. But you know what? I think he's got a point. I think these are two separate forms of a species, and balladii is indeed distinct from langtoscana. Sadly, they've now been lumped, so there we go. But whatever, it has these wonderful great plumes of creamy white flowers. I mean, look at it. It is a wonderful plant. Yeah, what a beauty. And I'm sure you'd all love to have that grown in your garden, right? Now note, I didn't actually say whether I'd seen Primula allioni or not. So if you do want to find out, please head over to my website, alpineoli.com, and you can watch the whole video and see if I found it. Please keep supporting the AGS, become a member if you've not already joined, go to a show, go on a tour. I went on my first tours in Merlin, the French Alps, led by Michael Upwood, and it changed my life. It was just fantastic being around people that had the same interests as me and seeing flowers in the wild. It was wonderful. I hope you can join me on my next adventure. And yeah, ciao for now.